Welcome to our very first podcast for member care with Mission Global. And we have special guests, Murray and Cindy Cornelius. Just wanted to have some time to talk with you guys in kind of a care-related environment topics. Something that we talk about a lot in care is resiliency and staying long-term overseas. And one of the things that I thought about when I was thinking about doing podcasts and doing these recordings was that book, The Long Obedience in the Same Direction. And when I thought of that topic, I thought of you guys. You guys have been doing this for a very long time. At different ways and different stages. And I thought it would be great to just kind of get your story and some insights from you on your journey along the way. Because I'm sure, like all of us, you've had your ups and your downs along the way. So it'd be great to just hear some of your story in that way. So I think, Murray, you've shared about this in different contexts about the long obedience in the same direction. Tell us a little bit about that. What does that stir in you? And you know what, maybe we should back up and just talk a little bit about where you've been, what you've been doing, how long you've been doing this, and then we'll circle back to that theme again. So let's start there. Let's start with, what have you guys been up to for the last 60 years or whatever it's been?
Oh, thank you for saying 60.
Yeah, we started in the ministry when we were 10.
Okay.
No, seriously, we entered ministry 1982 was our first pastoral charge in Vancouver, BC. We were on staff at a great church called Broadway Church. We'd been in the church for 3 years. I'd served in many capacities, volunteer. We led young couples ministry. We were very active in leading home Bible studies. So we were very active in the church. And then we went on staff for 5 years. And truthfully, we loved Vancouver. We loved pastoral ministry. We've felt that perhaps we could stay in pastoral ministry for a long time. We were not planning necessarily to do anything different. I had a real enjoyment to what I was doing, and I could see that as a career to follow. But the Lord spoke to us very clearly about a particular missionary opportunity on the field that was available to us in the city of Harare. But again, it was a pastoral opportunity. We went out to pastor a city center church in the city of Harare, and it just jumped out at me off the pages of a magazine like, that's what you need to go and do. And so we put in our application, and we headed to Zimbabwe in December of 1987. I should say that you asked the question of us on paper, what did we underestimate about long-term service? We probably underestimated how long it would be. We really went there thinking this is like a 5 to 10 year assignment. I'll be pastoring this church for 5 to 10 years, and then it needs to be turned over to a Zimbabwean pastor. And then we would return to Canada, and I'd pick up pastoral ministry in Canada again. So we kind of underestimated how long we would be on the field.
And I think, too, jumping in here, we underestimated. We went out. Our focus was pastoring an English-speaking city center church. But throughout the years, we underestimated probably the different changes and opportunities and challenges that would come along the way. We ended up doing Bible college work. We ended up doing food relief. We ended up doing HIV/AIDS training. So you start out focused on one thing, and we maybe underestimated that, there's going to be other things added in.
And Cindy, tell us what it was like the first week in Africa. This would be your first trip to Africa. Did you feel like a little bit of a fish out of water there for a bit?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm just trying to think. Just it was just so different. And I knew, in those first few months that I was really going to have to follow Murray's lead. And, we had a 4-year-old boy at the time. So, you're wanting to ensure that, he was doing okay. Um, yeah, I mean, fortunately for us, Zimbabweans, their English is excellent. We did do some lessons, but we probably got a little bit lazy because our focus was an English speaking church. I really took on the challenge of I wanted to provide for my family. I wanted to know where everything was. I'm driving right away. Yeah, I like to take on those sorts of things.
So I need to talk about her resilience a little bit. So first of all, to ease her in, we went to Kenya first for a 2-week holiday. And I took her down to the coast to the beach, and we had 2 weeks just oriented. But even that, we get on this ferry to go from Mombasa Island to the south coast, and there's about 5 cars and 50,000 people on the
Wow.
ferry. And they're all around you. And at one point, Cindy looked back and somebody had their hand inside the window rubbing Jason's head to
Blonde
feel his
hair.
hair. And she's sort of looking, what do I do now? There's a man with their hand inside the car. We went to South Africa where we purchased some vehicles and furniture that we'd need because there wasn't much available in Harare at that time. It would be very expensive. And we drove up from South Africa and we arrive at the border and we're met by two Canadian global workers. I won't mention their names, who with Jason at 4 years old standing right beside us, shout out to me and Cindy, "Did you hear the news? Last night, 16 Pentecostal missionaries were murdered in Zimbabwe." And she's standing at the border. I'm thinking, are you two people crazy? Are you trying to chase my wife away? And Jared is standing there looking up and listening to this. Cindy didn't bat an eye. At the same time, Jared had this box of crayons, 150 crayons. It was so hot, they melted into becoming just one big crayon. And she just laughed. That's how resilient Cindy was. And when we arrived there, we were told by our hosts, the leaders on the field, there's no housing. You're going to have to stay with us for 3-4 months in the house. So we're staying with other people. And Cindy had gone out and found a house within the first week.
Wow.
And a very nice one at that. And she looked after all that stuff. So you want to talk about what it takes to last a long time?
Mm.
You have to be able to adjust and you have to both be engaged in it.
Mm.
And I couldn't have lasted all that time without all that Cindy did and all the things that she made it easier for me because she just took them on. She didn't need me to drive her around. She didn't need me to help her to do this, or I usually needed her to help me to do stuff, not the other way around. She found the grocery store. She found where to buy stuff. She found where the cheap deals were. And she got the boys registered, or Jared registered in a daycare right away.
Wow, that is quite remarkable, actually, and
It is.
A gift from God for both of you coming together like that and being called that way. So then you were there and you got moved on to something else.
Yeah, as it turns out, the opportunity to pastor the city center church only lasted 5 years. Our work permit was revoked by the Zimbabwe government. And that was probably a significant low point when we loved what we were doing. We loved the church. We loved the We loved the young adults and the youth in the church. It was a very young, vibrant church. We had great music. We had great young people. But the work permit was revoked, and we were asked to consider going up to Zambia and becoming an academic dean at Trans-Africa Theological College. And we agreed to do it, but I'd have to tell you, the drive up to Zambia was incredibly depressing.
Yeah.
At that time, Zimbabwe was a nice place to live. Zambia was not a nice place to live. We lived in a big city. We went to a small mining town. It was still 1 million people, but it felt like a small town. We went from a nice house with a nice yard to a house we referred to as the Beast. It was very old. It had all kinds of problems.
Live
Wires hanging here and
Oh,
there.
that's always good.
Snakes in the back shed. It wasn't a particularly nice area of town. You couldn't grow any grass on the yard because of the pollution from the mine. So it was just a very, very much more difficult place to live. But once again, the Lord surprises you.
Yeah.
We enjoyed the ministry.
Mm.
I enjoyed the teaching. I enjoyed the students. I enjoyed the people I was working with. Cindy got very involved in all kinds of different ways, sometimes buying food for going out and collecting food so that the students could eat. And I think she did some teaching of English as well on a regular basis. So she was involved in the school, and we just really enjoyed it.
Let's swing back again to this phrase, long obedience in the same direction. This is from a book, and actually I went out and got the book, reading it, and realized that it's really nothing to do with missions, but it actually is a pretty applicable title to missions.
Yeah, it's a great title.
Yeah. So what does that stir in you? So just let's talk about that a little bit. What does that stir in you when you think about the long obedience in the same direction in the context of missional calling?
I think that it created in me just the concept of beginning to think long term. It produced in me an openness and a flexibility to adapt to change when it comes. You can't get rigid. Now, I know that some people have a real strong sense of call to one specific thing, and they will do that one specific thing until it's done. They're probably a little bit more single-minded about their work, and I honor those global workers in that way. I can think of numerous global workers who recognize this is my calling, this is where I'm called to be, and I'm gonna keep at this until the end. I embraced a little bit more flexibility. So when the door closed on the church and the Bible college opened, it was hard. I wasn't all that happy with the change. I wanted to stay at the church, but I couldn't. So we just embraced it. And we embraced a different house, different school for our children, embraced moving all of our stuff on the back of an open trailer from Harare to Kitwe, 1,000 kilometers through a border, getting it all registered, exporting and importing our cars, going through it's hard to do that. There's paperwork. You have to get this paper and that paper and some other paper. So we spent a lot of time at border posts trying to get things done. But we embraced it. We embraced the new. And after 2 years at the Bible college, that's when our mission director at that time, Lester Markham, invited me to be the regional director. And I wasn't anticipating that. We had a regional director. I thought he would stick around for a while. But suddenly this new opportunity came, and I had to think about what will that mean? What does that mean for the family? Where do we live? So flexibility is a big issue, being open to the doors that God opens for you, and to what are my unique gifts? What do I bring to the table that is the best thing for now? What can I do?
I'm not a speaker. I'm not a preacher. but the skills and the giftings that God's given me in administration, I never had a season where I felt unfulfilled. In our 20 years overseas, there was always lots for me to do. And I look at that now as just a gift from the Lord. I loved everything. I mean, pay slips, organizing this, events, learning about HIV/AIDS so we could do seminars together. Just we went for several years with no petrol in the country. And, I became chief petrol lady, getting thousands of liters of fuel from the United Nations and just, you know, the highs and the lows and the different ebbs and flows of things that come your way. And, if I could give anybody any advice, just embrace the challenge, figure
Mm,
out how to make it work. And in that season, find the joy in it.
mm.
Yeah.
I'm just in my head, I'm just have this picture of Cindy being this gasoline
I
cartel.
I should have got her a uniform for it because she would have a few hundred liters of diesel and a few hundred liters of gas back in our detached garage area.
I was just thinking, I was curious, where do you think that you're talking about flexibility and embracing the change? Where did that come from in you guys? Was that something that you feel like you were taught, or is that something that was more caught?
In my case, Mike, I had the opportunity to observe my mom and dad in ministry in Kenya for many years, and they had different responsibilities through those years. But basically, they started in a rural context. My dad was doing church planting and would go out on different weekends and preach in different churches. He helped with schools and making sure that the schools, the educational institutions in those churches were operating. And then I watched him move us up to Nairobi when he sort of became the leader in the field. And I watched him. Sometimes I'd be sitting in the living room and I wasn't supposed to be listening, but I would hear him chatting with other workers about the work. And I just realized that he was a very flexible person. He always found a way. He was optimistic. He would find solutions to problems. And I think I caught that sort of spirit and attitude. And so for me, uh, embracing the work using I could do multiple different things at the same time. I
Mm,
wasn't focused on one thing. We'd be building a church over here. I would be planning a conference over there. I would travel to some other part of the region. I could just manage multiple things, and I guess that's a gift.
mm,
Uh, but in order to do that, you had to be flexible and open and not arrive anywhere with fixed ideas on exactly what needed to be
mm,
done.
And Cindy, did you come from a background of just kind of embracing change and kind of flowing with things?
No. My
Okay.
father was Pentecostal holiness.
Oh dear.
So,
I grew up in a very strict house. No, I think maybe I love a challenge. Um, I uh, I love being Murray's partner. That's always been just at the top of my list for my own life. I value being a good partner to Murray. That's always been very important to me. I hope I've been okay and not caused him too many difficulties. Um, but I did want to say too about longevity. We were very, very focused on certain things through all the 20 years for our family. We took vacations.
Mm,
We always took a vacation. either to the beach or on a safari. Those things were really important to us. We got involved in the boys' schools, their school life, um, whether it was sports, whether it was ladies' teas. When they had to go to boarding school, one of us would try and get up for whatever big sporting weekend. So that was very important to us. And
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, we prioritized
we
them.
really did.
We prioritized our holidays, and the
Yeah,
holidays were for them
yeah,
as much as
Mm.
they were for us. The beach was fun, the
yeah.
safaris were fun,
Mhm.
and we just didn't let them get missed in a year. We would always put them in.
And we prioritized never missing a missionary retreat, a global
Mm.
worker retreat.
Mm.
We would find sometimes if a global worker family would start making excuses to not attend a retreat, that was a warning sign for
Mm.
us. Okay, what's going on there? Why does somebody not want to come to a retreat?
Mm.
We always prioritize that. And Christmas. We made Christmas great. We always had a global worker family from another country come, and then we would have, some of our friends, our national friends, and it would be a full day event. And
Mhm.
so there were 5 or 6 things that we focused on every year that were important to us, that were valuable to us. And I think those things helped in the longevity of our life there.
We made our home a place of peace. It was, we ensured that it was comfortable, peaceful, but it was also a place of hospitality.
Mhm.
We
Mm.
always had people in. We had when we first went out there in the first place we were in the youth of the church. They liked World Wrestling Federation, so every Saturday we'd get a knock at the door. Can we come in and watch World Wrestling Federation on your TV? And usually they would stay all night and play Monopoly and laugh. And for us, our home was open.
Yeah.
They were
Mm.
good to our kids. Our kids had fun with people that came in. So you embrace the people that you're ministering with in the culture where you are, and you enjoy whatever fun it can bring your way.
Mm.
And I just don't ever remember not having a good time.
That's that is great advice because I think sometimes we go out and we take ourselves too seriously
Yeah.
and
Right.
we work ourselves to death or
Yeah.
get a messiah complex, whatever, and we just don't enjoy it. After a while, we burn ourselves out, or we just don't see the fun because we're not looking for the fun. We're always looking for the hard things that we got to do and just kind of grin and bear it, right? So
Yeah.
that is great, really good advice. Was there a season that was particularly difficult for you guys that you had to figure out how to navigate, either with help from somebody else or just kind of leaning into each other a little bit more?
I'd say there's probably 2 or 3 seasons that were like that. Uh, when we first arrived, um, it was it was a little bit difficult in that there was a little bit of confusion over what we had come to do in Zimbabwe, and maybe some feeling that we had been foisted on the field by the office. And so there were times in which we wondered, are we really welcome here? Do these people really want us to come? And I'm not talking about the nationals. I'm talking about the uh, the fellow missionaries, the fellow global
Mm,
workers that were there. And
mm,
we may have misinterpreted things. It's not always that you interpret things right. But we had to really bolster each other up when we first arrived to say, no, we believe that we were called to this. Let's just be patient. Let's let things work themselves out. Let's stay friendly. Let's believe the best in other people. Let's not let relationships get out of order here. So that was one. The second one was the move to Zambia, where it was not in the plan. We felt a little bit let down by some people. We felt maybe there were some people, not fellow workers, but maybe some African people who had worked against our work permit, some who were unhappy with something about us. And we could have got easily very bitter over that. But we, again, when we got to Zambia, we just had to pick ourselves up and lean into each other and say, we're going to get over this.
Mm.
The final time would probably, and Cindy maybe has another one, but the final time was when Zimbabwe was really crashing economically and trying to figure out how to get gas, how to get money,
Food.
how to get enough food, how to help everybody around us because
Yeah.
it wasn't just, I mean, we were in a privileged position for many of our the people we were working with in the churches. It was an incredibly hard time. I remember one couple coming over. They had been on their way home, and the police had stopped them and beaten both of them badly.
Yeah.
Husband and wife, down on the ground, just gave them a beating. And you're trying to lift people's spirits up. So that's when we needed to be strong in a time when it was really hard.
Mm.
And that would be the other time when we really had to lean in on each other.
Yeah. And I think too, we had to send both of our boys to boarding school.
Mm.
And for me, that was tough. That was really hard. And I think too, another time when we just really was when the HIV/AIDS virus swept through the country. I mean, we were reeling from it, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of young people dying. And, just, even within our home and talking to each other, how can we help? What can we do? I'll go to this funeral, you go to that one, or, it was, yeah, it was tough. It was a really hard season.
Yeah, we
Mm.
lost a lot of friends,
Shit.
young people that we had
Mm.
seen grow up in the church when we were pastoring there. And then when we came back, we were involved in the church again. And we'd seen these young people grow up and thrive and then get sick and die. It was very hard.
What would you say to someone 5 years into service overseas? Maybe somebody starting out even, like what are some things that you would say would just contribute to that long obedience in the same direction?
The 5 year mark for us was very tough. That's when we had to move from one place to another. So I think at the 5 year mark, it's very often that maybe you've run up against some obstacles or it's become more difficult, or maybe you haven't experienced the success or fruitfulness that you would have liked to have seen. I think I would say to them, you need to hang in. You need to stick to it, see what doors the Lord opens. I would also say don't let any relationships not be repaired. Like don't let
Mm.
bitterness against people or
Mhm.
upset against people. Maybe you've been hurt in some way. Maybe
Mhm.
somebody has been saying something about you that is not nice. Maybe you've been mistreated by some people. Don't let what other people have done change your heart or spirit. Um, there's somebody in sort of the 3, 4, 5 year period that did some things that I would have that I found quite hurtful, coming from a Zimbabwean pastor, and yet I knew that person had the potential to become a significant leader at some point. So I just determined I was going to make them my friend.
Mm.
I wasn't going to allow those kind of relational tensions impact me to such a way that I would end up embittered against anybody. I just said, I'm going to make them my friend.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I successfully did that. I made friends and I ensured that I kept accounts short. Don't let accounts with people begin to build up where
Mm.
you're feeling negative feelings towards other people. So I'd say to anybody at the 5 year mark, how are your relationships? Are you feeling embittered against anything? What can you do about any sort of bitterness that might? So it's going to get better. There's great opportunities in front of you. If I had quit at those 5 years when I lost my work permit and couldn't go on to Zambia, if we'd quit and come back to Canada, I think I would have lived to regret that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as I look back now, I say, thank God that we were resilient and flexible enough to pack up our bags, move our house, change our location, go to another country that wasn't as nice as the one we were in, embrace that country, embrace the people there, because that just enhanced our ministry long term.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it opened all kinds of new doors for us that made the next chapter of being a regional director much easier.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to say, I'm going to push through the obstacles, the barriers that are there, and and refuel and recharge and say, what do I need to do to get some fresh life back into me?
Mm-hmm. Cindy, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I would just say to, step back and look at how you're thinking about where you are. Are you starting to use the terms us and them?
Mm-hmm.
Those are two terrible terms to use, or to think that way. Are you angry about, the challenges now because the economy has gone downhill? You need to just step back and say, okay, how do I fix these attitudes? Because you won't be able to move on. If there's no fuel, okay, look, how do we figure out to get fuel? And yeah, so I think sometimes you just need to step back and just do a bit of an attitude check
Mm-hmm.
and not just say, oh, this is what I'm seeing, but now this is what I'm seeing. How do I fix this?
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's, through relationships or, reaching out to your regional director, I'm struggling, or, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And learn to laugh at the funny things.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I found in my relationships with African people that I had built such good relationships with them that I was part of the jokes. When they were telling jokes and laughing, I was invited into the inner circle, and they would tell great jokes.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something I think Cindy and I learned along the way. We had been in Zambia for a year and a half now, and at the Christmas banquet at the Bible College, Cindy and I were part of planning the banquet with the students, and the boss was coming. Lester Markham and his wife were coming out. They were going to be at our banquet. And we put on this banquet, and it was just full of fun and laughter. There was one point in which Cindy and Gladys Banda,
The wives.
the wives of the academic dean and the president, came out inside the same suit that somebody had sent in a container that was obviously a very large person with a large suit. And they're doing this skit inside this suit, pretending to be Joshua and me. And Lester Markham and his wife said, we've traveled from North Africa down to here. This is the first time we've seen Africans laugh. We didn't think they thought anything was funny. And I said, you don't know African people.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is funny. So you've got to embrace it. You've got to embrace people. You gotta laugh. You've just got to embrace life. In every culture,
Mm-hmm.
there is humor
Mm-hmm.
and laughter and enjoyment, and you've got to get inside that. You don't want to be looking at that from the outside. Don't get in. Cindy talked about it. Don't get into that us and them mentality and
Mm-hmm.
start using language like these people are all like
Mm-hmm.
this.
Mm-hmm.
It'll kill you.
Mm-hmm.
It's we, the people of God, we Zimbabweans, we people living here, we have to work together and be together. And so you embrace them as family, and it changes the way you look at life in that context.
Thank you so much for taking this time to talk with us today about longevity. So really appreciate everything that you said.